In the mid 80s, I had a really huge fight with my father, which I was getting good at because I had a lot of practice. And this particular fight was about a family decision that, of course, I have no say in. I get my rank, but I had no idea it was going to turn into the ball of fire that it became. My father and I didn't speak for about 3 years. And I was living in Albany, and for whatever reason, I started thinking that I really needed to put this cane away. Sorry about that. I really needed to think about this and get back with my family because I wasn't talking to anybody. So I made a decision that I'm going to do it, and that took a lot of time and effort just to work through the issue. And how was I going to respond, and planning for what my father might say, and was I ready to be on the defense? And I rid myself of all those fears and said, you know what, you just do it. It'll be fine. So I took a 5 o'clock in the morning train to New York City, got in at 7:30, people were still sleeping. I took another train, 2 trains, on the Long Island Railroad out to my parents. I got there at about 8:30, and everybody was still sleeping, which I figured. And I went in and sat in the kitchen and just sat there for a little while. And my father got up and he came into the kitchen and he didn't say a word to me. And I was not planning for that. I didn't think it would be silence. At the time, I used a guide dog, and my dog was crashed out on the floor under the table, doing his best at what he does. And I just couldn't believe my father wouldn't say a word. So I stood up, and I reached out and grabbed my father's hand and said, "Happy Father's Day." And he said, "Thank you." He goes, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I figured it was time to visit and celebrate Father's Day with you." He says, "Well, what are we going to do?" I said, "Well, we're going to start out by going out to breakfast. So get ready and let's go. I'm starving. I've been traveling for 4 hours." And he was a little reluctant, but he did it. Then he had to go explain to my stepmother what was going on. And she was really happy that I came and didn't know what was going to happen. She expected an explosion. I did too, but it didn't happen. And then we went to breakfast and we drove home. And my dad says, "What are you doing the rest of the day?" I said, "Well, I'm going to take you out to lunch, which is in about an hour. So why don't we just hang out at the house and visit, and then we'll go get lunch." And he says, "Can we bring Mom?" I said, "Sure." So we did that. And then we drove back home. And my father asked if I needed anything. And I said, "No, thanks, Dad." "Well, we could stop at the mall." I'm like, "No, Dad, we're good. I don't need anything, thank you." So we get back in the driveway. My father says the same question. "Now what are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm planning on taking you out to dinner, which is in about an hour." Because we were sitting and talking constantly at the restaurants that we went to. And my father was really surprised, and he started to laugh. He thought it was really funny. Well, I thought it was funny too. I didn't plan any of this. I just kind of wung it. And we had a really fantastic time. We never said any words about what happened. We never did the "I'm sorries" and the "that's not my father, he wouldn't go there," never, ever, ever. He taught me a very valuable lesson. Feel free to say sorry whenever you need to, because he would never do it. So I say sorry all the time. People correct me. "Stop saying sorry." "All right, I'm sorry that I'm sorry," is what I say. But I learned a lot from that experience. And my dad, for the first time, really was relaxed in many years. I hadn't seen him relaxed with me in so many years, maybe 15 years since I saw my father laugh with me and kibitz with me. And I left that night to go to the city, and I stayed with a friend. I wasn't ready to stay overnight at my parents' house. That was pushing the line for me. But I left and went to the city and visited with a friend. The next morning, I took an early train back up to Albany, and my dad died on the 4th of July in 1988, and that Father's Day was the last time I ever spoke to him or saw him. So it almost happened that I was going to go 3 years with never speaking to him, and then having him pass, and then it would be an open loop that would probably have haunted me forever. But in fact, I came to my senses, and I think the lesson for me was holding grudges is a lot of pain in your gut. The value proposition is absolutely nothing. You have to not feel guilty. You have to feel strong, and you have to be convicted in what you're thinking about, and you have to figure out ways to explain it in languages, and I'm carefully using the term languages, doesn't have to be verbal, that can get the point across. My dad and I lost 3 years there, and I'll never get those again. But I'm happy to say that was the first and only Father's Day that I ever had that I said I loved my father. Thank you so much.